Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing very well today and you're ready to float into your Friday with us at PTV World this morning with Shazad Khan and Maha Maktoub. And you're looking very smart today, Shazad. And we managed to match today. And
Oh,
we didn't
yeah,
even
exactly.
coordinate
I
it.
don't know how it happens, but thank you very much. You know, that was a very fabulous introduction as well.
I like to keep them short and sweet.
Yeah, okay, we can do that. But other than that, you know, it's Friday today,
Yes.
and the weather over here in Islamabad is perfectly amazing to go out or probably plan your weekend too as well, ladies and gentlemen.
And yeah, but if you do that, please make sure that you look after the other drivers on the road because, you know, over the Eid holidays and even over Ramadan, we saw a lot of crashes here. There was a lot of road rage and very, you know, not pleasant behavior.
It's just that naturally, you know, we tend to be more impatient in Ramadan. I don't know whatever way we put it, but, you know, that's what I've witnessed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we discussed, the whole contradiction of it all. You're meant to be patient, but actually we become more impatient.
Exactly.
But
And
Shazad,
I think
yes.
that the topic we have picked up today is of crucial importance as well because
Absolutely.
of the fact that, you know, it gets very unnoticed and people get away. We lose people just because of that. But before we indulge into our topic, let's take a look at the top stories first of all. And when you guys are going to come back, we'll discuss the nitty-gritties of what's happening and why is it happening.
It's a very important topic.
Yes.
A magnificent array of 1,400 drones illuminated the night sky of northwest China's Xi'an as the ancient city marks the 1400th anniversary since it became the capital of the Tang dynasty.
Wow. I mean, the operators might have been practicing for long because otherwise it's difficult. And I think I've seen such news before too as well.
Magical.
Yeah, it is. More than 50 years after his death, curious art lovers can now see sculptor Alberto Giacometti's Parisian studio exactly as he left it, right down to half-finished sketches and his ashtray as a new artistic institution celebrating his work after 50 years. I did.
And a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO road racing car is expected to fetch more than $45 million at an auction in August, making it the most valuable car ever to be offered for public sale.
Ma, do you think that you're going to spend $45 million on a car which looks like this?
Absolutely not.
Well, even I'm not going to, but I don't even
I'd rather
have
buy a
$45
boat.
million.
Yeah, exactly. If we did,
Yeah.
I'd buy a boat.
But I'll definitely buy a Ferrari, whenever. All right, moving on, where Mexico City's market that never sleeps, the Central de Abasto that sells some 30,000 tons of daily produce and merchandise, will now be providing a brand new offering as the world's biggest urban art space.
Amazing.
Well, it might just feel so great to be within the market then.
Yes. And a 15-year-old Pakistani teenager, Ahmed Raza, is in Russia to conduct the coin toss for the historic FIFA World Cup match between Brazil and Costa Rica today. This marks the first time a Pakistani will be present on the pitch of a FIFA World Cup match in an official capacity. Congratulations to Ahmed Raza. I hope you have a wonderful time.
And it is great as well. But other than that, you know, for all of those people who are Messi lovers, I think that, you know, it's about time that you actually accept Ronaldo as one of the finest players in the world. Because with what happened to Argentina yesterday with Croatia, that was very unexpected. And what was the goalkeeper doing actually? I mean, I just didn't get it. I mean, what was happening?
I feel like there's a lot of surprises here, and there's a lot of unexpected turns and twists within the World Cup. But that is what always happens. But now
Exactly.
Shazad,
But which team are you supporting?
none, because I'm not watching.
Really? But you know, for me, even though, you know, I don't think that they're actually, I think that they're out of the World Cup by now. So I was supporting Saudi Arabia because they actually had a team in the FIFA World Cup, and I think it was great. And it's not that it was very recent, back in 2000. You know, they've been working on their football and national teams for a longer period of time.
Well, and you know, good luck to everyone else who is still in the match and the World Cup. But now I'm really not watching it. I really need to get into it.
Perfectly all right.
Okay, so now moving on, as Shazad has already mentioned, that we are highlighting a very important issue. Now, this topic, you know, social anxiety and depression is something that we're seeing world over. But within Pakistan, the discussion about it is much more different compared to maybe, you know, if you go to England, where, you know, we talk about this stuff all
Yeah.
the time, and mental health is actually recognized as something that people
Exactly.
invest in.
And Maha, you know, whenever we are on the show, we give away figures, we make sure that, you know,
Yes,
we have
sure.
researched enough. So the Rights Commission of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, gave away a figure in 2011. According to Nation.com, they said that more than 1,100 suicide attempts were being made, and then God knows how many of them actually had to lose their life as well. Now, when we talk about giving up on your life, you know, it is usually there are three different factors. For example, lack of morale. Then there's depression, which gets unnoticed over here in Pakistan because till this time and day, we still do not consider it as a disease. Well, there are people who talk about that. There's quite a lot of advocacy going about that as well. And then it's the parents. So today, what we're going to do
Wait, before you move on to
Yeah.
what we're doing. So one other thing about what's happening around the world is that not just in Pakistan that we don't pay
Yeah.
attention. We've seen a lot of people, famous people who've actually taken their lives. You have Chris Cornell, you have the guy from Lincoln Park, then you have Anthony Bourdain, then you have all these actresses
Kurt
and actors.
Cobain.
You know, so there's so much out there, and even in the West, people are not aware because it has still got the stigma attached to it. People they feel more vulnerable when they express themselves. And you know, actually, and within even our friendship groups and whatever, when someone says, I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling anxiety, or I have this, I'm feeling low, people are always trying, focus on the good stuff, do this, do that, do this. Sometimes you don't need to say anything, you just need to listen. And the thing is, we're so quick to give people advice here. So don't give advice to everyone that comes and speaks to you. Let them express themselves.
Exactly, and you know, ladies
Sorry, I
and
just
gentlemen,
noticed that a
it's
lot.
not even important to actually own a house, you know, have a great family, have good health. By the end of, you know, for example, when you're 50 or 60, you can still even realize that you're still not happy. So we probably need to look deeper into things where, due to which probably, you know, it might have been our childhood or the hard times we went through as a family, or, you know, when it's the middle age crisis as well, when your parents were fighting.
Yeah.
So there are different things, and then the foremost and the most important thing which I would love to mention before we start our discussion with our amazing panelists over here is that, you know, do not judge your own self or your achievements depending on what types of people are actually posting their things on Facebook, telling that probably, you know, they are in Prague on vacations, or probably they have bought a new bike or whatnot.
Absolutely. But the thing is, you know, I think it's so easy to say that, but it's actually very difficult because it's encroached into our lives. But the
Yes.
thing is, today we're going to be taking less of a psychological approach to it, but more of a practical to see, you know, what other options are there within Pakistan, what are the universities offering, what are people, corporations offering as well. So we have...
And before we
Yes.
do that,
Yes.
so ladies and gentlemen,
So
just
many points.
keep in your minds and, you know, start practicing it as well, that life is a journey, it's not a race.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
So we've been joined by Ibrahim Ahmed. He is a trainer and coach, and he is the CEO of Goal Training. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum assalam, good morning.
Thank you so much for
And you're
joining
exactly on time.
us. Good.
It's a pleasure.
Besides Ibrahim Ahmed, we've been joined by Malik Asif Rasool. He is a lecturer at Namu University and also a corporate trainer and educationist. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. So let's get the conversation started.
Yes.
First things first. How do you think Pakistan is doing in terms of depression, in terms of kids actually not talking to their parents, communication gaps, and then lack of morale? There are too many different reasons.
Yeah, this is an avenue of questions, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. So,
So
Let's
Hi
start
there.
one by one. Let's
Yeah.
start with one and we'll build
So
up
I'll
from
start
there.
with students first. I think the problem, I've always had complaints with our upbringing and conditioning and social conditioning,
Okay.
and how we have been brought up in the environment we live in.
Yeah.
Made by our parents initially, then our uncles and aunts, and then our teachers, then our seniors in universities, and then eventually our seniors in our workplace, you know. So everyone is constantly adding pressure to it. So now let's get back to students first.
Yeah.
What I have seen over the years is while working with students is they want to do something else, but their parents want them to do something else. Primarily under the influence of their some relatives' kids who is doing something,
Yeah.
and the comparison is there right from the word go. So what eventually they do is, I mean I was just listening to a video last night, and it says that a student by the age of 5. By the age of 11, hears no for about 150,000 times.
Yeah.
And they hear yes for only 5,000 times. You know, don't do this, don't do this, don't eat this, don't go there, don't play with him, don't do this, you know, all these do, no. So the first thing is that what I have seen is that they've been conditioned in an environment, in a victim mindset to begin with, right? And then they start hearing about comparison between themselves and their cousins, their friends, and who's doing what grades have they got, and then this race of grades among students. And if I take you back to the initial history of schools, why it was developed, initially they call it knowledge factory. So they had industries, but they don't had the manpower who would done anything else other than operating machines. So what they would do, they need people, educated people. So they introduced this concept of schools. So when the period is over in the school, they ring a bell. It's like conditioning you for the bell that they rang in the industry when it's a break, and then the period is over. Now it's a lunch time. Now the school is over. So the student gets conditioned right from there. So the idea was to produce people, students who would come and join the industries, right? So when you go to an industry, this is what they do is, if you see any supply chain, they'll put a raw material into one side, and through the process it will convert into a certain product, and they would stamp it as A, B, C category, and then it would be sold according to that price. Now what happens with you and I, or for that matter with everyone?
Exactly.
We enter into a school, into a college, into a university, we go through a process, and then we are stamped again, A, B, C, and you should get an A, so you'll get more money, you'll get a good job, or B category, C category. Even the colleges don't take B's or C's because we need A cream. So this peer pressure has made it into a race. We call it a rat race. And what our education system wants us to do is that they want all four of us to compete in the same environment, undergo through same tests, but perform better than each other.
Okay.
So hence the comparison and the race with each
I'll
other.
come back to
Okay,
this.
and the thing is, so this is something that is there, and we'll talk about the solutions and how to deal with and cope with it. But I want to move on to another concept, please. You are teaching as well, so you're exposed to a lot of students. So these days we're seeing that social anxiety disorder is also being picked up. As Ibrahim's already mentioned very aptly, he's kind of told us a bit about the conditioning of it. What are you seeing are the main causes of this social anxiety and depression within the students around you?
Well, thank you very much. Basically, there are myriad of factors which are going to contribute to accelerate or activate this issue and problem. In our society, the problem is right after the birth, there is a game which we call social comparison. It goes on all the time. So this is like one problematic factor which really accelerate this problem. We see, like when children are growing up, first of all, even parents, those who do not have any kind of awareness about this particular phenomena, what they're going to do, they're just going to tag the kids. For example, if a father is there and he's got a daughter, she's naturally shy, perhaps at initial stages. So if they're going to get impatient, and if they start like scowling or chiding her, or if they're just going to nag at her, no, with every passing day, she's going to get depressed with this, and she won't be able to face issues and problems. Second is like when there is a family gathering, and there are kids from different families, from the same family, of different sibling. Now, elders, us, we just behave like spectators, and they're just playing, and we are going to tag them. This tagging is one of the worst issue, which really triggers this problem. We just look, he's very shy. Oh, he's very intelligent. Oh, he's very talkative. Oh, he's very confident. No, this, again, we are just going to provide them with this kind of environment where we are just going to put a lot of restriction. And we just want them to behave like robots the way we wish them. This is another problem. And then they move on to their schools. Now, again, like we say that inside school, we've got like very high mod school, then we've got like government school and all that. Problem is that if teachers are not aware about this phenomena, I mean, they're just doing a wonderful job. But again, like I have seen even in the best institutes, they are not concerned very much about the psychology. All the teachers, even they are part of this rat race.
Absolutely.
That look, you've got to achieve, you've got to achieve. Then we have got society. When the child has to move inside the society, like he has to meet different friends and all that. So they too have got their own pressures and all that. And ultimately, when they get to the university, they have formed almost half of their, or 80% of their personalities. Now, believe me, I have seen at university level, it gets very difficult for us to help students to recover from those. So these are basically multiple
Because it's years
factors.
of conditioning and kind of embedding all that
all
stuff.
of these things are very correct as well. But now I'm going to differentiate as well a bit. And you can agree and disagree as well, because that's up to you. So now what happened was, so I am a generation from 1980s, right? And for all of those people who think that, who I think were born in those times, were actually the same things which you just mentioned and are very relevant as well. But now I am a father to a daughter as well. And when I see her doing things, I just don't use the word no. And I want her to experience it herself. Just an example, and that is that, for example, if a cup of tea is on the table and the kid's coming running and he or she wants to touch it, I'll probably take his or her finger, dip it in for a second, and then they will know that it's hot. So, what we do is that when we talk about processes, a process is defined as something which is followed by a logical conclusion. Now, but as a matter of fact, for all of those processes which we make as parents, our kids go through do not have a logical conclusion, and that's the reason why we end up over there. For example, if I ask my father, why can I go outside today to play? Oh, I've said it, you can't just go out.
Yeah.
Now, why? I mean, kids wants the answers to all of those questions which we ask almost every day, and normally at a range of 150 to 200 questions are being asked by a normal kid in a day's time. That's what research says. And every time if it's a no, what do you think we should do?
Okay, so first thing first, talking about the experience and logical answer, I think that's very interesting thing. You see, what is your experience might be a theory to me,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yes.
What people don't realize is that we try to enforce our experience, our learnings, which are just a theory for other person
Yeah.
on others, right?
Right.
I remember late Banu Appa was asked in one of her interviews on PTV. Naeem Bukhari Sahab asked him, he said, Ashfaq Ahmed late, he made a movie in his life, and it failed terribly. And he asked her, did you not stop him from making a movie, considering that you don't have enough resources? And she gave a very beautiful answer. She said, if you want to stop someone from something, let them do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they would know why not to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't discuss things, there are still topics that are considered taboo in our society, talking about depression and everything. A lot of things that are inside us are just not coming out because either we would be judged or the other person would be giving same suggestions, like she said, oh, don't worry, you're focusing on negative things. I mean, it's just in your mind.
Yeah.
You just play or just work, or let's come out with me, let's go out for a food. That's not a problem. That's not the issue, problem. The problem is the word listen and silent has same letters.
Yeah.
If you don't listen to me, after some time I'll be silent. So a lot of
Absolutely.
no's will make turn my.
No, but that's not something which I'm going to go with, because this day,
Why?
I've got a very interesting story to share. So on Eid, I had those letters with which I have written Eid, E-I-D. So one of my maids, she was working, she was cleaning, so she rearranged and she made the letter die. So, they've got the same letters as well, but on a lighter note, that was a joke too. as well.
That was a good one. But the thing is, you know what? I would have to differ with you. I think I agree with you. Now, the thing is, that's the problem with mental health and these kind of issues like social anxiety, depression. It's not just depression. There's a whole umbrella of, there's lots of things underneath it. Now, that's actually also, I think, highlighting what the issue is that, people still don't have the awareness. Like, that's clearly what's happening. And we're still seeing a rise in the figures of female suicide and now male suicide as well. Now, the thing is, and also within certain countries, it's also illegal to do it. You will go to jail if you don't succeed.
Even over
Now-
here.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I was trying not to say that. So now the thing is, these are different ways, and these are, how certain, countries try to deal with it, but it's not the solution. So what do we do? Because it's like Shahzad's saying that, your parents are not letting you ask questions. You have all these cultural, societal pressures within this nation regarding this. So what's happening?
Okay, so first, guilty as charged. I've been under mild depression for some time in my life as well, so I may not
One
know
or two
exactly
people
how
suffer.
it feels. I may not know how exactly it feels to be, but I have some idea how it feels to be in that state, where my toughest job in the day was to leave my bed and go to washroom. I
Yeah.
don't even want to do that, right? So I know how it feels to be in that state as well. And coming from parents, like you said, what to do about how to ask about questions. I generally believe in most cases problem is not with individuals or with students or with kids.
Yeah.
I always preach and I tell people, please work with parents. Like he said, we need to stop giving labels to our kids, even in a social gathering, even if it's positive. We need to give first self-recognition to our kids at our home.
Okay.
The problem is in most cases, children at home doesn't feel recognized because they are always comparing.
Yeah.
And on a lighter note, I used to say, if you want your parents to, own your success, secretly work hard and hope that one day someone from your relatives would show up and say, oh, your kid is doing an amazing job. And that's when you will get the recognition at home.
But that's a really unhealthy way. So I want, yeah, sorry. But I want to ask, sorry.
Yeah, that's good. But what I've witnessed at times is that parents, even if they know that their kids are doing great, they won't even say it on their face because they think that they might spoil them. What do you have to say about that? Yeah.
Exactly. Like when we have got to look at this phenomena, there are different variables. So I mean, right now, if we just look at the situation, we have got the best institutes, especially schools. So in schools, teachers are equipped with these latest methods and all that, and children are just going to develop themselves according to that enriched environment. But problem is, when the same kid goes back to the home, parents do not have any kind of awareness. So time and again, for example, I just want to quote one of my students. He was with us in business studies. So I was just really working on this kid, and one day he literally got so much impatient, and he called me outside and said, look, I've got to share one problem with you. He said, look, I know that you have been working very hard, but I don't think so that you will be able to get desired result. I said, well, I am a very hard taskmaster, and I'm not going to give in, but do share your problem. He said, my problem is, like I've got like this female sort of voice. The moment I get back to my home, my father is the first one to just make fun of me. That, oh, my daughter has come. And whenever I go to any kind of gathering, my father is the first one to make fun of me.
Yeah.
Now, look, I've got to stay for more than 18, 16 hours in the same environment, which is really very much disturbing. And I've got to stay with you for just one class or two classes. And this is like really a genuine issue and problem. So we have got to, I mean, obviously we'll come toward that, where we have got to help people recover from these kind of scenarios and situations.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I've noticed this as well. Is that no, I'm just telling my kid the truth. Oh, I'm telling them so that the outside world won't ridicule them. That is not an approach. Bullying your kid is not the answer.
Hard.
So now let's go for, that's made me really sad. Let's go for a short break, and when you come back, we're going to talk more about solutions and practical approaches because like we said, we're doing a less psychological approach, a more practical approach.
And I actually want to talk about, of all of these things from parents' perspective as well, because, I'm a parent, and I'm sure that you are parents too as well, so we need to discuss that, because half of the time, when these kids know that, we are able to control our parents, they threat them that, we're going to take away our lives, they lock themselves in the rooms, and then they do not come out, and it gets their parents very worried.
Okay, so now that is another element of it which we will be discussing. Actually, we're not going to go for a short break. We're going to share a trailer movie with you.
Let's do that.
And it's called In and Out. It's great, although they've done very stereotypical kind of emotions. Inside Out, sorry. Inside Out. Let's go take a look, and when you come back, we'll continue our conversation on how to deal and cope with stresses and external pressures.
Let's do it.
So, Riley, how was the first day of school?
Fine, I guess.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong. Signal the husband.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What is it, woman? What?
I'm Joy. This is sadness. That's anger.
What?
This is disgust. And that's fear. We're Riley's emotions. These are Riley's memories. They're mostly happy, you'll notice, not to brag.
I wanted to maybe hold one.
What happened? Sadness?
She did something to the memory.
Is everything okay?
I don't know.
Take it back, Joy.
Great.
Joy, no,
Let
wait.
go.
The core memories.
No, 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 no.
Can I say that curse word now?
What do we do now?
Nothing's working. Why isn't it working?
We have a major problem.
Oh, I wish Joy was here.
We can fix this. We just have to get back to headquarters.
That's long-term memory. You could get lost in there.
Think positive.
Okay, I'm positive you will get lost in there.
What was that? Was it a bear?
There are no bears in San Francisco.
I saw a really hairy guy. He looked like a bear.
This place is huge. Imagination Land? No way. Dream Productions? Rainbow Unicorn? She's right there. I loved you in Fairy Dream Adventure Part 7. Okay, bye. I love you. focus on what's going wrong. There's always a way to turn things around. It's broccoli!
Congratulations, San Francisco. You've ruined pizza. Who's the birthday girl? Brain freeze!
Hang on! Riley, here we come!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a trailer from the film Inside Out. It's an animated film, and if you're sad, I think it's going to be a good watch too as well. We don't want you guys to be sad. That's why
No, it's a great film.
we
Very
join
good.
you every morning as well. But now, continuing the conversation, where Rasool Sahib very rightly said that my father or my mother or anybody else from the family is the first one to pick up on the kid, and then they make fun, and then obviously when you're not accepted at home, you won't be accepted outside your homes as well, because that's where the bullying starts when you go to school. Now, I want you to take the parents' perspective as well, because it's very one-sided, the conversation so far. Now, what about all of those parents who genuinely, first of all, are saying it to make sure that, he's not being bullied, or he or she shouldn't sound like that, or shouldn't wear like that, or, the color is actually natural. Weight is something which we can still control. But eventually what happens is when the parents overdo it, the kid does not like it. He or she is going to go lock themselves in the room, threaten their parents that we're going to go kill ourselves. What do you think should be done at that particular point of time by the parents, all of those actions which are very important to be taken then, because we never know whether the kid is serious or not.
But how do they get to that point, though? That's another
Yeah.
element, right?
There's a very interesting thing. For example, we as parents, when we just look at ourselves, the way we grew up inside school and colleges and at university level, basically, we are the product of this one typical method.
Badna hai yaar, tu
One method. Okay, I'm saying it and you've got to follow it.
Yeah.
Whereas my kids, they've got a very different kind of they've got, they ask a lot many questions to the teachers, and their teachers are there to properly satiate them. Now, problem is when the same kid comes back to me, it gets very difficult for me to, though I am a teacher, I go for the training as well. But believe me, I have seen at so many occasions when my son or my daughter, they just come to me and they ask, I always find that, well, now I can't go beyond that. I've got to go for this shot call and all that. So I would say that first of all, we have got to develop this awareness among parents, so that they should be able to properly align themselves with whatever is going on inside the school, and they should lower their guards, and they should be able to properly communicate with the kids. And this is really going to solve the problem. Second is, right from the start, we have got to keep this realistic approach. Hard realities of the life, because if you're just going to pamper your kids too much, well, it's a problem.
They won't be able
Because
to
if
take their solo
we see
flight.
it from Islamic point of view as well. When the child is 5 to 7 years old, there's a very different paradigm. Right from the birth, what Islam recommends to the parents, that you have got to behave just like slaves. And your children are your master, because that is a very subtle age to develop this IQ level. But once this specific time period is over, then you've got to change the rules. You are a master and your child is a slave. And this is how you've got to. This is Islamic perspective. Then we've got obviously Western perspective, and it has got its own repercussion and issues and problem as well.
So,
Okay. No, the
but,
thing is
but,
that,
but I haven't got my answer.
Which is?
So what do you, we can very easily say that the parents need to talk, and they need to communicate, but what kind of communication that needs to be? Because eventually over here, we do not have a pattern or, this tradition of going out for a drive one-on-one, because what happens over here is the mother or the father, both, or the entire family is going to sit down and try to consult with the kid or counsel the kid as well. But
That's a
other
problem,
than that,
right?
what I want is that, all of this should be done in secrecy, where the kid or the father or the mother just sits down and talk about these issues, and the rest of the siblings shouldn't even know what their brother or sister is actually going through.
Why not? My question is.
Because what if they bully them?
No.
Roll
Why
reversal.
not? Why not? This is the question. This is the problem is, and I have actually seen it, and I've asked people, and they have actually validated it for me. Why you think a lot of families are very happy on the first 2 hours of Eid? because everyone is hugging and kissing each other.
Okay.
Right? So there's this neurochemical, that's dopamine, that's releases in our mind when we hug each other. We feel safe, right? How many times does parents now hug their kids when they go home? Hardly any, or only when they are up to the age of 4 or 5, let's just say. Once the kids start going to school, or when they are beyond 6 or 7 years of age, I don't know many actually parents who would go and who would hug their kids. So the bonding is not there.
I still have my parents though.
You still that, so
We're
they are
very
the
rare
lucky
though.
ones, you know. One person doesn't make a rule. You are an exception.
Yeah.
So what they does is,
true.
so what they do is, so what is your way out? What is your shelter? It's your friends. Why? Because when you'll meet your friend, you will hug them and you'll probably have a very informal, candid conversation. What it does, it makes you feel relaxed, right? So we need to have that kind of an environment at home. So when a kid wants to talk about anything, literally anything, maybe their relationship, their studies, their failure, their success, their new fashion, their new crush, whatever that is, it has to be their parents first.
Okay, now the thing is, we're all sitting here and we're saying, making it sound very easy.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. You have to have that communication. And and also you made another good point that certain things that we say, these are the exceptions, these are not the rule. This is not happening to the many. But how do you change generations, centuries of conditioning, cultural conditioning? Because as you aptly mentioned, that after a certain age, we don't show affection to our parents. And what Shazad said, I'm going to slightly disagree, that if you don't have acceptance at home, you will go to other places outside your home. That's when you can fall into the wrong things, because you want to be accepted. Now, why, after seeing all the news, seeing the rise in mental health issues, why are people not being able to understand what is needed?
Okay, so first thing first.
And this question will be for both.
Okay. So 6 basic human needs. One of them is need for significance and need for belonging. We need to feel that we belong to someone, and we need we have a need of significance.
No,
as well.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be very realistic. The reply is going to be, well, this is your home.
no,
We're
listen,
family. I'm your mother. Don't be so
So
upset.
I'm coming to it. So I'm coming to it. So the first thing is,
Hold on.
hold on. So when we, even parents unknowingly bully their kids, is you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too dark, you're too whatever they say, your voice is like this. It's because of a certain hypothetical average that we have assumed in our mind.
I like that.
For example, how fat, how tall, how skinny, how small, how beautiful, how white, how black you are. It's because in the comparison of a certain average hypothetical per figure, and the positive or negative deviation to it makes you look fat, tall, or skinny, or
But the cholesterol in your
Is
blood will definitely
right?
tell you whether you're
Yes,
fat or not.
so
yeah.
no.
So it's not hypothetical.
So no, I'm talking about in terms of
We're talking loosely, man. Don't be
yeah.
pedantic.
Yeah, generic.
So and the same way, how successful you are is because of the certain average. The average person should earn about 40,000 a month. You earn about 70,000. You are reasonably successful.
Okay.
For example, so these comparisons will come into the play at home. We don't know who set those measures, who set those standards. We tend to compare everything with a certain standard whom we have no idea who created that.
Or whether we have achieved them or not.
Yeah, so coming back to your parents and need for belongingness and recognition, the problem is how hard is it for me or for my parents to say, okay, just because you are my child, I know you are special. Right? For example, like he said, what to do next. For example, there are two ways to it, and expression makes all the difference. For me, one thing is, even though he looks very, very good in this attire, but if I say, Shazad, this waistcoat is this is such a dumb, why you're wearing that? You look pathetic. One is this expression.
Yeah.
The other is, Shazad, don't you think if you wear black, you would look more good in that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about seeing the picture from a different perspective.
Vocabulary
Vocabulary.
plays a vital
Jargon,
role
yes.
Thank
in our conditioning and how we communicate.
And I want to,
same
yeah,
question.
before we move on to Rasool Sahib, a very interesting thing, and that is that, even if you're looking good, you still are surrounded by people who are actually going to come and say, yeah, your waistcoat looks good, your shoes look good, or your kurta so nice. Why can't you just tell somebody, oh, you look good today?
Yeah, we're just weird.
So it's not the person, but certain things that's
Yeah.
very good, yeah.
My answer to this problem is that we properly need to tap on this phenomena. It's not like we have got this knowledge with us from centuries, which does not have any kind of proper research, proper data for this, and people who are the product of different cultures, different areas and all that, and this has come with them from years and years, and they're just going to emulate. Now we need proper researchers. into each of these phenomena so that we should be able to properly counter these. For example, number one is parenting. Parenting is one of the best issues and problem which we must acknowledge, consider, and then we have got to develop awareness program. For example, I can tell you a very interesting scenario. Parents, even I would see hardly a few mothers who are free in the morning and they're watching these shows, where generally in all TVs, different channels, people are just talking about these phenomena. But how many of them, they are just there to listen to them attentively? Yeah. And I just went to one of the morning shows, and I was I just came across a very hilariously funny incident. Like I had one counselor with me. I was there as an educationist. Then we had like the guy who was excellent at Star, what Libra says and all that. And believe me, during that 2 hours program, all the calls which we received, they were about that guy. Okay, what does his horoscope say and what we have got to say. Yeah. Now, look, they did not care about the counselor. They were not interested in education and all that. They were just interested what that guy was saying. Yeah. You know, like if parents are going to carry on relying on all these things, I really wonder how they got to solve
that's true too as well. And one more thing, and that is I want to move on to social media. But before I exactly move on to social media, I think we need to talk about the usage of cell phones too as well. For example, you know, whenever you're traveling, whenever you're abroad or within the country or you're outside, either, you know, you're just going and texting and walking and then you're taking a selfie. I call it taking a lonely as well, because imagine that if you do not even have someone to take your picture, how lonely you really need to be for that.
No, don't say that.
And even other than that, you know, at times there are occasions where you see people whom you have been witnessing and seeing on social media, and as soon as you see them, you do not even have the guts to say hi. Yeah. So what's the point of being friends on social media platforms? So then all of these people, they condition you too as well. That, you know, once a year vacation is mandatory these days, you know, buying a new cell phone, who's driving the latest car, or, you know, people have different interests as well. But what happens to the other person is that he or she actually stops posting, because they think they do not have anything very interesting to post or to share with people, and then they are taking a lonely now. Yeah. So what do we do about it?
Okay, so the first, jumping to a solution first, self-acceptance is the key. I need to identify my self-worth through my achievements or my hard work and my journey, instead of comparing with any of you or someone on my social media.
Yeah, but when you're conditioned, like everything we've talked up to has taught us to compare ourselves. So how do we unlearn that?
So you see, one of the reasons why social media is a hit is because it's based on the principle that we are, as humans, are interested to know more about what's happening in the other people's life. It's a typical street culture that we used to have. Now the problem is that what we do, since we don't have enough guidance, since we don't have enough policies to how to monitor, and since we are not mentally mature enough to understand, okay, I need to walk away from it, you know, so we fall into the trap of social media. But the solution is, you need to understand, if for example Shizad and I, we are connected on Facebook, right? So I need to understand, he and I, we both are in a journey, we're not in a race. That's the topic of the show as well. Yes. His starting point in life is different, mine is different. His exposure is different, mine is different. His experience is different, mine is different. His resources and resourcefulness is different than mine. I need to understand that. The moment you differentiate between these, you would be able to cultivate a path for yourself. That might be very hard. I'm not saying it's simple.
Exactly.
Very hard, but you would exactly know. For example,
so now tell us, before we move on, because you know we can talk about the theory, but how do we get to that point? Tell us, because you're giving us really great tips here.
So first thing, so what happened? I'll recall my experience. I came to this show for the first time in 2016, right? I didn't tell anyone that I'm coming to PD World Morning Show. I came back home, I watched the repeat telecast at night, and then I showed everyone the clip of it, and they were like, why didn't you tell us that you were coming on the show? I said I was not confident enough that I would be able to speak English for 1 hour.
All right.
So I didn't tell anyone. Okay, fine. So next time around when I came again, so this is my 4th appearance, but whenever I came here, I know, you know, okay, this is a TV show, anyone who wants to watch it will watch it. Yeah. And once I get the link, I'll share it. Anyone who wants to watch it will watch it. The problem is we think that it's my duty, my responsibility, that I'll change everyone.
Yeah.
And since the other person is giving a different vibe, different opinion, or not following our advice,
Yeah.
I'd like, the person is not right, or something is
Very
wrong with my
correct.
advice.
Very correct.
If I don't get the comments and likes, sorry, I just take one last sentence. So the problem is, if you post two things on a social media at the same time, one is something like he said, the astrology is something that's entertaining, and the other is serious one. The number of responses that you will get will tell you the seriousness of your viewership. And then based upon the responses, we all feel good when we get likes and comments because we get a certain hit of dopamine in our mind. We start posting entertaining stuff. We forget ourselves.
Yeah. So I want to give you a real-time situation, and that is what happened since I was traveling. So I just posted a picture where I hired a car, and I like cars and sports
By
cars
the
and
way, I love
whatnot.
that car.
So there was somebody else who just kept on posting again and again, saying, "Oh, kitna अच्छा होता अगर ये तुम्हारी होती." All of those mean comments.
Comparison.
And
Such a weird thing to say.
And they kept on coming in, and I was like, okay, it's all right. People are following me, so whatever they say, I've got to respect that. But there came a point where I actually had to block that guy. Now, what in your very honest mindset comes which says that why he or she is actually going to or try to do that or demean you over things which you like?
First of all, we have got to prepare ourselves because we cannot shut this phenomena down forever. It's not only in Pakistan, all over the world. We
Yeah,
can
it's
see
universal.
that this kind of bullying, this is something natural. It would go on. You can introduce any kind of knowledge or
and whatnot.
whatever that is. It won't stop.
Yeah.
Just like this is something. Now, again, going back to parenting, we have got to basically start off with these proper guidelines where parents are not going to lie.
Yeah.
They're not going to speak. They're going to speak properly truth, so that right from this young age, children are going to get the real flavor instead of this forged one,
Yes.
fake one. For example, I've got one of the best incident which I've got to share. I've got one of the professor, Mr. Raza, at my university. He was going for Hajj, and I was sitting one day with him, and he was a bit frustrated. I said, okay, Raza, what's your problem? He said, my problem is that me and my wife, both of us, we have got to go to Medina for Umrah. But my problem is that I've got my young son, and he is not willing to accept this thing. Now, I said, okay, I mean, before knowing all the thing, this awareness and all that, I said, okay, Raza, there's a typical Pakistani style. Just lie. Tell your son that, well, I'll be back in the evening. He said, for God's sake, I can't do it. And he told me that it took me almost 10 days to convince my son that I'm leaving. Your mother is going with me. Though you're young, but you have got grandparents, you have got this sister as well. This is your job to take care of them. And he said, after almost 10 days coaching, he was literally ready to accept this phenomena. Now see the beauty of that. It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
He could have gone for that typical style of parenting that, oh, I'm just going in the evening, I'll come back, and then kids will keep crying, and he's going to come back, and he would say that, you lied.
One litmus test is that how many kids have their parents on their social media? Hardly any, or their family.
Oh, yeah, they
Their
just don't let
relatives.
them in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that should tell you there is something wrong in it. It can be lack of communication, lack of trust, lack of affection, whatever you may call it. So that's one of the
Or
issues.
probably whatever they want to do, they do not want their parents to know.
That means that they're either doing something wrong or they're doing something that their parents won't accept, even if it's right.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Right? For example, when I started my training career, my 95% of my family thought that I am lecturing somewhere. 5% thought that I am a debater.
Yeah.
Whereas I was interacting with corporates, with the university students, and I was working with professionals.
And still, even if we just talk about these unusual fields,
Yeah.
I mean, we do not
Career
have students.
selections.
Because if my son is going to come to me one day and he said, I've got to become a singer, for God's sake, I've got these fixed paths, and I've got my son to walk on these fixed paths, not these untrodden paths.
We will
So that's why
definitely
we do
talk
not
about
have-
all of these
So
things
we've
in the
run out
next
of
show.
time. Thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful. And, as you rightly pointed out, that I kept making the statement that it's not psychological, but a lot of the stuff was touching base. There was a lot of advice and practical advice that you guys can start implementing. The thing is, social media is not real life, but the thing is, mental health is a real issue, and we need to look after ourselves if we're ever going to reach anywhere in life.
Exactly. And one last thing which I'm going to say is that please make sure that you do not actually teach all of your kids all of those things which your parents actually have been teaching you as well, because that time was different, this time is different. please make sure that the parents these days are adaptive and are trying to actually learn new things as well. And kids can even teach them.
Exactly, and we have to move forward and evolve. Now, if you would like any information on anything we've discussed, log on to our Facebook page.
It is with the name of World This Morning.
Our Twitter page.
World This Morning without a G.
And Daily Motion YouTube page.
World This Morning.
And the repeat is at
11 p.m.
Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you bright and early on Monday. Be good and be safe.
Till the next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.